Okay, so we're just at the hour now. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're located. The webinar today is focusing on how to unlock the power of learning within your organization. We do have a busy webinar today. We have lots of great speakers. And before I hand you over to today's guests, we have a bit of housekeeping to go through. So we have a lot of people on the call today, and I just wanted to make sure that we're all able to tune in properly. So if it's your first time using GoToWebinar, there's a couple of ways you can dial in. Hopefully by now you can hear me. So you can either dial in using your local mic and speakers if you have headsets. Hopefully you'll have that sorted by now, or if you're having any trouble there, you can also use a telephone. Hopefully you won't have to go down that route. Secondly, as I said, we have a lot of people on the line today. We do have time dedicated at the end, and my colleague David Bosang will be reminding you to post any questions you have within the questions pane within GoToWebinar. So please don't wait till the end. So as the speakers are going through their segments, please post your questions there, and we'll get to them at the end. Lastly, we are recording, so don't worry if you need to leave early. If there's another colleague that you have that couldn't make it today, we will be sending out that recording probably early next week, and also we'll be posting that to the website, so you don't need to worry about that. So who's attending today? Interesting to see of the 200 people that have registered, about 30% are from the US and another 20% from the UK. And then 8% from Ireland, interestingly enough. I'm sure a lot of them are Scorebuddy customers as well as employees as well. And then the other 40% are from various different regions. So interesting breakdown by that. So for those of you in the US, those 30%, good morning. Or you may be at your coffee break now or mid-morning. So welcome everyone. And then breakdown of the industries. So not sure if it's surprising enough to anyone else on the call here, but we have about 25% are from outsourcers. There's another 12% from technology, 16% are from financial services industry, and then again, the numbers go down and down, but a good spread across various different industries and locations as well. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of the day to attend this. So here's the running order for today. I'll introduce you to the guests now in a second. Throughout this agenda, we also have plugged in a couple of polls, quick polls, just to kind of get a test to see where we are. So these are key questions that I'm sure you should be asking yourself as well. So it'd be interesting to see the results, and I will display the results as we complete the polls. So kicking off today, we are going to be covering, sorry, I just lost my screen there for one sec, how organizations are thinking about learning and how it is driving results. So Frances from LearnUpon, one of our partners, will take us through that. So she will kick us off. And then I'll hand you over to my colleague Ken, who will walk us through how you can, how quality assessment can uncover learning opportunities. And then Marianne and Rebecca then will have a quick chat about how Abby Connect, which is where Marianne is connecting from, how they align their learning and development plans with their company goals, and how you can really secure buy-in then from the leadership as well. And then lastly, we'll conclude with the questions and answers. Okay, so I'd like to invite the 5 key speakers to unmute and also switch on their webcams, please. So firstly, we'd like to welcome Frances Kleven, who's Director of Enterprise Customer Success from LearnUpon. Frances, you're very welcome. And I know you've been heavily involved in developing of this content, so I just want to give you a second just to say hello.
Hi, everyone. Really delighted to be here, and welcome everyone from all over the world. And I know it sounds like such a geek, but there's nothing more that I like than talking about learning. Like, it actually is the most exciting thing in my world. So thrilled to be on this call and to chat with you all about it.
Great. Thanks, Frances. Secondly, we have one of Scorebuddy customers from Abby Connect. We have Marianne Letchek. Hopefully, Marianne, I didn't do your disjustice in that. I did a quick check with you before that. Marianne is the VP of Operations at Abbey Connects. Marianne, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Great. And you're all the way from Las Vegas, so it's nice and early for you. And then on the Scorebuddy side, we have David Bosang, we have Rebecca, and we have Ken Lane. So welcome, everyone. I don't know if anyone, David, Rebecca, or Ken, if you want to say a quick hello.
Hi, team. You're all very welcome, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Francis and Marianne and giving you some ideas about learning and your teams.
Excellent. Good. Okay, well, that's great. So let's get stuck into our first item. So we do have a quick poll. So the poll is, the question is, you can see there is, do you have a designated learning and development team? So I'm going to launch that poll. So you'll see the question pop up on the screen. So if you want to take a couple of minutes to answer that, and I see lots of responses coming in, which is great. Maybe no surprise to see the result there. So still, I'll give it another couple of minutes and then I'll share the result. Okay, it looks like it's slowed down a bit now. Okay, so I'm going to close that poll and I'm going to share the results on the screen. As you can see, we have 80% that says they do have a designated learning and development team, which is fantastic. I'm sure this is something that Francis and the other speakers will cover as well. Again, Francis or anyone else, any surprises here with this result? Is this something that you normally see?
Well, from my perspective, it's a great result to see. We were a little bit concerned that perhaps organizations hadn't yet put in place a dedicated learning and development team. So it's great to see that an 80-20 result means that hopefully you'll get great ideas and suggestions from Francis and Marianne.
I think it's also pretty dramatic, and I can't say for sure, but if we had done this poll 2 years ago, I think you would have seen those numbers flipped. Like, I think that's something transformative in the last couple of years for, as everyone knows, a variety of reasons, but that's a huge, huge change in the industry, and that's why we're having this conversation now. It's really exciting.
Exactly, yeah, super. Great. Okay, so let's move on to our next segment, which is actually you, Francis. So, Francis, I'd like to hand over to you. And if you can stay unmuted there, I'm just going to switch off my webcam and I'll move on to the next slide for you, Francis.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks so much. Apologies in advance. There is a company update happening outside my meeting room. I forgot that these are the consequences of being in the office. So if you hear some laughter or other things, that's not a laugh track behind me, just a normal office business that we're now back to, which is actually quite lovely. But I'm Francis Kleven. I work for LearnUpon. I've been here for 4 years. I'm the director of our customer success team, so working with our customers on their learning programs using our learning management system. But as I said, learning is the thing I'm most excited to talk about. My background is, my entire career is in learning, first in universities and helping them develop their digital learning strategies. And then I moved to Coursera and MOOCs and on-demand learning, and now with LearnUpon in corporate learning. But throughout all of those, whether I was talking to universities or talking to businesses or nonprofits, that I was always asking the question, why are we training? And whether that's training someone to analyze the sonnet or training someone to operate a machine, why are we doing this? And most times, even now, most times the answer to that is because we have to. And that's not a bad answer, but it actually isn't the reason. And I think the consequence of that is that we treat training a bit like a checklist. And whether that's a training program, whether that's content, whether that's a learning management system, that we just say, we know we're required to have training. And so, yes, we have these courses, tick. Yes, we have a learning management, tick. Yes, we can run these reports, tick. But that's actually not why we're doing it. And that's not a good reason enough to invest all of our people resources, our financial resources into training programs if the answer to why are we doing this is just because we have to. We have to have compliance training, we have to have onboarding training, we have to have product training. But I also think, and interesting in, as we saw the flip in, how many companies now have dedicated learning and development programs, it's really important to me that part of that evolution in learning and development programs is that those teams can articulate the business results that they deliver to their organizations, because they absolutely do, and that they're able to pivot when they see places where they're not achieving those results. So this is where we started engaging with our customers. So we have over 1,300 customers at LearnUpon, and we spent the last year trying to understand what their objectives were and how we could help them and ourselves distill that into a finite number of objectives. I honestly thought we were going to end up with 20, but we actually ended up with 5 objectives that we think apply to most, if not all, corporate training programs. And when we think about these, not as learning objectives, but they're company objectives. They're objectives that learning and training programs they're contributing to those company level results. So one is improve role-specific learner outcomes. So the easiest one here, I think of examples in sales and support. So our objective is not to have training programs for our sales and support staff. Our objective is to have training programs that help those employees in support and sales drive business results, drive the results for their outcomes. So do support agents answer tickets more quickly? Do sales staff drive more revenue? So again, the result is not the training itself. The result is this driving specific outcomes in teams and with individuals? Increase employee engagement and retention. So this is where we get into the trap sometimes of measuring completions or measuring enrollments or measuring logins. But I always say, so what? So what if 100 people in your company log in? So what if you have 100% completion? What does that actually mean? And for your employee side, you really want to look at, are your employees responding in higher levels on your employee engagement surveys, but ultimately retention? Are your training programs contributing to retention? Because that's ultimately the goal. That's where you can put revenue numbers too. It's very costly to lose employees, and you want to be able to point to your training programs and say, these contribute to retaining employees in our company. Decreasing costs, so training and support. So are we able to show that our training programs decrease the people cost of training employees? So an example of that would be, can you onboard new employees more efficiently with less time spent from other employees, less resources spent? Can you develop on-demand training programs that are more cost effective? And then also internal support. So can you train employees so that they are not requesting support from IT, that they're able to manage those things that don't require then internal support to do that? Improve in document compliance. This actually made it to the list, and I didn't want it to be there because I initially thought compliance is just a tick box, but it's actually not. And I had some customers convince me otherwise, that compliance, you can track that to revenue. So if you're in a regulated industry, you can track compliance completion to you're not getting fined, or you're getting financial incentives for making sure that all of your employees are compliant. But it also is about risk mitigation, so that you can actually tie it to revenue. If all of your employees have completed their required compliance trainings, you should be a safer company and a company that is safer from risk, and you can put monetary value to that. So compliance in itself isn't the goal, but if you can look at compliance and say, as a company, we know how this impacts our revenue, that's really, really important. And then that's why I was so excited to see so many companies with L&D teams on the call, that enabling learning and development innovation. If we can deliver business objectives and then also reduce the time that we're spending delivering training, and resources, we can also enable our teams to be innovative. So we can have the time to see where we're not meeting our metrics, to see where we could drive more sales, to see if we could drive better support outcomes, and that we have that time to empower our L&D teams to enable that innovation. So excited to hear all the things that you have to say on this call and that you're thinking about, and thrilled to be invited here and to get to chat a little bit about learning and results. It's definitely my passion.
Excellent. Thank you, Francis. Much appreciated. Thanks for walking through that. Very concise, and hopefully folks attending have taken something away from that. Okay, so that's great. Moving on. So next, I'd like to pass over to my colleague, Ken Lane. Ken Lane is an account exec here at Scorebuddy. So Ken, you're going to walk through how how quality assessment can uncover learning opportunities. So Ken, I'm going to make you presenter because I know you're going to share your screen. So you should now receive make presenter. Okay, you should now receive a option to share your screen, please. Yeah, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Can you see the screen now? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. So thanks for that, David and Francis. Guys, I suppose most of you will probably be familiar enough with the dashboards that we have within Scorebuddy. What I'm going to try and show today is the connection between the learning management system and the action that we can take as a supervisor, as a QA, or as a manager. Once we've identified that there may be a gap at agent level, we've identified what that gap is and what is the action. So as in physically taking that immediate action to assign a specific course to them, and maybe track it through tasks or through our new functionality, which would be the appraisals process that we have released within the platform as well. So we'll be covering all those areas there as well, okay? Some of you might be familiar enough with this dashboard. This is the Supervisor Dashboard. I'm logged in as a supervisor just to give you an overview as to how supervisors can keep an eye on the metrics, keep an eye on how the various channels are performing and targets are actually trending. What we're looking at here is a specific set of scorecards for both the phone call, the chat, and the email channel. And this is looking over a specific amount of time. So it's from October through to April. That purple line that we're looking at there at the moment is an email, the email scorecard. So we can see the peaks and troughs, and we're actually starting to hit into a bit of a dip going into April there in terms of the actual trajectory. The sections below is where we can actually start diving a little bit deeper into the actual channel itself. And these tabs are where we actually click on the email. This will actually give us a list of all the agents. It'll give their last 12 results and how they're actually trending. Are they trending up or are they trending down over those last 12 scores? We also show some of the actual engagement metrics associated with that. Are they actually looking at the results, being a view, or are they accepting them, requesting one-to-ones? Have they been reviewed by the supervisor? And as I mentioned earlier there, we have the new appraisals functionality built into this as well, okay? And I'll be walking you through this very shortly. If we look at these two agents in particular, Bobby and Edward, we can see that they're trending down over the last 12 results. And we can actually see the scores, which are hyperlinked to bring us directly into the evaluation. As a supervisor, if I noticed that, Edward, we'll pick on Edward for today, was struggling in specific areas within the email channel, we can actually start taking some specific action and creating a task and assigning a course to actually kind of close out that gap and improve in those areas. Quite simply, as the supervisor, we would click onto our staff tab. This would give us the list of employees that we have assigned to us, and there we see Edward. And if we click over to the more, now we have all the actions, and this is all around the learning and development piece. We can create tasks, we can manage development plans and goals, we can create new appraisals, and these are all time-bound and priority-driven, and they can be monitored very closely, which lead to proper kind of year-end reviews and discussions around, bonuses, etc., etc. To enable a course, all I do is click on the courses, and this will give us a direct link into those courses that we can now specifically start enrolling them into those courses, okay? The agent within their dashboard will now see how they're actually performing and what tasks have been assigned to them, okay? So as an agent, if I click in here as Edward, the agent will see their track record, how they're performing versus the team scores, how they're performing in terms of their scores over whatever date parameters they've put in place. Below is where we can actually see the tasks that are actually open and assigned to these guys along with their goals. And then along the left-hand bar up here, we can actually see what has been assigned to them in terms of courses. And if we click onto that, we can see our goals and we can see whatever appraisals have been set up as well. Okay. In terms of the appraisals, this is a fantastic tool to actually manage specific development plans, development themes we may have put in place with our team. And I'm just going to show you how this might actually, how this actually works and may fit into your plans for developing your staff. This is an appraisal for Edward. It is from the financial year of July through to June of 22. And what we're discussing here is training and development plans to focus on two specific areas. One is mastering the email channel, closing out gaps around the opening and main body. And the completion of these will put him on par with his other channels, which might be calls and chat. The appraisals works on the basis of the GROW model, which is what is the goal? What are we looking to achieve during the year? The OR for reality, so where are they currently sitting? What are they looking like in terms of current position versus where we're looking to try and get them to? All of these results obviously hyperlinked. But the options we're looking at are in terms of the courses. So how are we going to tackle this, or how are we going to achieve these development themes that we put in place? And you'll notice on the right-hand side, I'm just hovering over it here, this is where we can start accessing course content to assign to the agents to actually start enrolling themselves and completing these courses as well. Below is the will, and the will is really kind of using our task functionality, a little bit of workforce management to drive these plans to assist, develop, and cover off and complete these appraisals. Full commentary attached to them, and there's a completion assignment alongside that as well. Okay. So that's just a quick overview in terms of, you know, from the supervisor being able to kind of spot those trends, spot those gaps, but being able to actually physically assign them, create appraisals, tasks, and assign courses as we need to go through that as well. Okay. Moving from that, guys, I'm just going to click into the learning management system itself. This is the main dashboard within the learning management system. And from an administrator's perspective, this is the area where we'd actually be able to pin our widgets. These are all live, so we'd be able to kind of keep an eye on what the movements are in terms of, you know, enrollments, completions, et cetera, et cetera. So any of the stats that you want to keep an eye on, you can actually pin to this dashboard area here, okay? We can also look at the leaderboard, so who's the highest performer within the organization. Along the left-hand side, where I'm just clicking now, is where we can actually start kind of navigating through the platform, and this interface is exceptionally slick. It's very, very similar to the Scorebuddy interface, very intuitive, very simplistic in terms of setting it up and its creation. Next to the dashboard, we have our courses, and this is where we would actually be going in to create specific courses. And we use the analogy of we create, we publish, and then we assign. So we create the courses within the platform here, we publish them, and then they become available within the platform in Scorebuddy to assign to individuals, to agents, and to teams. Okay. In terms of the courses, I actually just created a very simple LMS webinar sample course. We give the actual course a name. We can actually choose to put in some reference codes. So when we're actually looking for any content, we can actually start, you know, assigning these, searching with the codes and keywords if required as well. Okay. These are extremely flexible in how we can actually physically set up these courses. So we can customize the course. We can enable, you know, reviews to be allowed at the end of completion, notifications in terms of, you know, notifying the teams or the agents in particular when it's due for completion, first reminder, second reminder, third reminder, etc. In terms of the other settings on that, we can assign certs, credits, learning badges if it was bundles, and due dates and valid until periods. Okay, so that's just around the course settings itself. But regarding the content, that's just alongside the info I'm hovering over there. In terms of creating the content, this is where we can start getting a little bit more creative. I do have some sample detail in there, the modules, I have a sample test, and I have some feedback assigned to that. But literally all we do is click on Add Module. We can add in SCORM or Tin Can from existing platforms if you have any there. ILT has proved quite a hit over the last couple of years with everything, you know, regarding the hybrid working environment, the new working conditions that we're all experiencing since COVID hit. That would be instructor-led training. It is, you know, managed by an instructor. It's done over a video preference platform of your choice. It does have registration. It does have live kind of class tutorial. It can have examinations, reviews, and all the other details on the back of that as well. Okay. Assignments, examinations, surveys, and we can add any content from the library. So any existing content that you may have, you can actually bring into the library, and you can start re-editing and reskinning that to publish again in new format. Okay. Once we've got our course created, we publish it, and then it is available within Scorebuddy for assignment. Okay. After that, we do have, you know, the catalog of content. We can manage our users. We can manage our groups. We do have portals, sub-portals. So you might have your main portal platform, but you might have a sub-portal for operations, or maybe one for logistics, one for, you know, sales, if you require that. So it's quite secure in its setup if you do decide to have multiple portals within the main portal itself. We have access to your library of content, or anything that you create will actually be fully saved into the library as well for further editing at a later stage if required. Certs, they're self-explanatory, creating your own kind of certificates for any courses. But the reporting in the system is absolutely, you know, it's best in class. And in terms of the reporting types, these are the kind of sample reports that we can run. Course status. We can look at the modules from within each of your courses. We can look at the history of courses. We can look at the learning paths. Learning paths may be something that you might explore or put in place for those individuals who are looking to kind of, you know, further their career and move into higher positions. So we might actually look at a learning path for new entrants, you know, complete course 1 before moving on to course 2. A bundle course itself would be a selection of courses that we would have to enable, you know, agents to move on to a new role or a higher position within the organization. We can report on certs, credits, we can report on the exam results, survey results, and obviously on the ILT sessions and the gamification piece. So quite a lot of content in that in that system, but I hope from the way I've displayed it there that you can see how easy it is to navigate and how easy it is to actually go in, create the content. And as I said, once that content is created, it's all available within the staff area here for assignment. So if I look at Edward there, I click on my courses within the Scorebuddy Academy, I should have my LMS webinar sample course. If I enroll it, it's now assigned to Edward, and Edward can actually start that course himself as an agent. Okay. That's from my side, David. I think that's, unless there's any questions, I think they're going to go through the chat normally.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ken. That's fantastic. It's great to see how you can, you've showed how, you know, quality assessment is clearly aligned, and how you can uncover those opportunities, assign and so forth, which is fantastic. Interestingly enough, we do have a couple of webinars coming up, which is kind of related to what you showed there. We do have an employee appraisal webinar, covers the grow model and that in later May. And also then separately to that, we do have a coaching webinar. So I'll make sure that everyone on here gets notified, and we'll also have obviously that posted on the website. So great, thanks, Ken. So I'm going to take back screen and just make sure, yeah, we're back on. So again, thanks a lot, Ken. That's fantastic. And so next up, I want to hand it over to Rebecca and Marianne. So Rebecca, I know you have a few questions for Marianne. Marianne from Abby Connect, Abby Connector, a customer of Scorebuddy. And it'd be interesting to see from a customer's perspective how they align their learning and development plans with how it's aligned with the company goals. So Rebecca and Marianne, if you want to unmute, and I'll let you guys take it away.
Sure.
Perfect. Thanks for that, David. So Marianne, again, thanks for joining us today. Just going to run through a few questions. So I suppose first and foremost, how does Abby Connect measure your success?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways to measure success. One is obviously, our client satisfaction. How satisfied are our clients? Are we getting great reviews? What issues have they kind of brought to the forefront? Another way that we measure are our conversion rates. We set goals of, hey, this month we want to convert at, an 85%. How can we hit that goal? So that's kind of another way we measure it. And then in addition to that, Scorebuddy is a very useful tool because with Scorebuddy, we can identify trends within the staff and from there set goals. For example, let's say the month of April, we see groups and teams scoring a little lower, let's say in contact directions or in empathy. Then what we can do for the month of May is set a goal to set them up for training in that area. Let's get them trained more in empathy and let's get them trained more on those contact directions and make sure that we're moving forward in that direction.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. And then I suppose that would lead us on to our next question. How does your QA help identify training gaps? So you did mention the likes of Scorebuddy and empathy. What else have you noticed since using Scorebuddy?
Yeah, so QA is actually super helpful in this aspect. So we have a 5-week training course before we release receptionists onto the floor and onto their teams. After that 5 weeks, that's kind of when QA will score them and see where they're at. And then from here, QA corresponds with our training department and they'll say, hey, last training class, it looks like we struggled a little bit with tone. So next training class, can we put a bigger focus on tone? And then not only there, but we actually hold monthly calibration meetings to where we'll pull 5 or 6 calls and we'll all score them. Training will score them, QA will score them, our receptionist development leads will score them, and then we'll all come together and make sure that we're staying in alignment.
Amazing, amazing. Delighted to see you using the calibration. So I suppose then, speaking of training that you have monthly, how is the learning culture within Abby Connect?
Yeah, so this past year, we've actually put a bigger focus on professional learning and personal development. And we've seen huge results within the teams. Not only do we focus on, KPIs and metrics, but we also focus on the individual development of each employee. So we kind of get with them and say, hey, what are your career goals? Where are you looking to go? What development path can we put you on? And then from there, we come up with succession planning, workshops. We have our de-escalation workshop where we, a couple of people will get together and say, hey, I'm struggling in this area, and we'll have them join this workshop, and everybody gets feedback of other people where we role play and we come up with different situations and scenarios, and it creates kind of an inclusive environment where we can all work together and figure out, okay, well, this worked for me, what worked for you, and figure out better ways to handle things. And then in addition to that, we do, book clubs where we focus on books like The Magic of Thinking Big and Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. So that's kind of how our learning culture is here.
That's amazing. I love the idea of book club.
Yes.
So I suppose that all sounds really positive, and it was introduced to Abby Connect quite, I suppose, seamlessly. Was there ever any challenges that you were faced while introducing learning and development and all those personal plans for your agents? And obviously it's not just at agent level, it's across the whole company.
Yeah, so there was a lot of pushback, I would say, at first. Obviously, we were very KPI focused and very focused on metrics and numbers. But I think once we started having those conversations of, what are your career goals? What are you looking for? How can we help you get there? That helped create a lot of buy-in. And from there, we saw across the board a ton of employees get, inspired by reading these books, such as The Magic of Thinking Big, and really start thinking about, okay, well, where do I see myself in 5 years? How can Abby help me get there? And in them, thinking that way, that's how we created that buy-in, and that's how we've really taken our business to the next level.
Amazing, amazing. That all sounds really good, and it sounds like despite all the challenges, you were able to overcome them, not in the old-fashioned way. But yeah, I must say I really love the idea of book club.
Motivation and inspiration.
Yeah, that sounds great. Brilliant. Well, David, that's all for myself and Marianne. If anyone else has any questions, please fire ahead and pop them into the chat.
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree. Book club sounds fantastic. And now at least at Scorebuddy, the tech team have a book club, which is some interesting suggestions that come up. So, so I really like the idea of that, Marianne. Sounds like a fantastic learning culture there, and yeah, great place to work. And you're in Vegas as well, which is always a bonus,
always fun.
Right?
Yes.
Great. Super. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Marianne. So we're near the end of our webinar. So we have one more poll. This poll I'm going to launch now. So we're looking at what are the biggest challenges you face within your learning and development needs, with your learning and development needs, I should say. So that should pop up on the screen now. So 4 answers. So if you can take a minute or two just to look at that. And as my son just walked in there, so hello. So as Rebecca just mentioned, if you have any questions, please post them into the questions pane now. And next we have David Bosang that's going to go through those questions.
Yeah, I have a few in, Dave, so we'll cover them after the poll.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So we'll I see people still submitting the answer, so we'll just give it another 20 seconds or so. Okay, still 1 or 2 more coming in. Answers are a bit longer, so. Interesting split here.
Yeah, okay. I think we can probably publish the results and talk through.
Okay, that's it. So I think we're all in. So let's close that and let's share the results. So of that, so 2% they don't have a designated team, and yeah, if you can read those out there, I can't. Can you see them, David? It's actually not.
Yeah, I think the audience should be able to review those. I suppose we'll take the 28% result where there's no efficient way of identifying training needs. I think we heard a really good practical suggestion there from Marianne in terms of taking it from the personal development plans of the team member. In other words, now that does suggest the need to almost put in place some bespoke plans, but at least it's a plan that the agent would buy into in a significant way. And as you know, that's a key part of non-compliant driven learning. And then obviously half the audience said, well, look, there's such variations across the organization. That's the biggest challenge to actually putting in place a cohesive learning and development plan. And that's so very true. So it's a case of, I think it's a very realistic picture. And just with the view of kind of polls and questions, if Francis is online, there's just 2 questions I'd like to kind of cover, which came through following on from her chat. The first one is, what's your observation on what drives an organization moving between buying in training content and building it themselves?
Yeah, I actually think that where I've seen it really successful, it's both. And it's really developing it's simple, but it's more sophisticated training programs where they're able to understand what is the training that we need to outsource and we need expertise, or we need, particular compliance training, and where do we need to develop things internally. So for example, at LearnUpon, we pull in our cybersecurity training from a vendor. That's not something, I mean, we do have cybersecurity experts, but they're not e-learning experts, and the training that we need to deliver to our employees isn't something that we need to develop in-house. But we build our product training in-house because we are experts on our product. That's something we very much want to be in the voice of LearnUpon. So the best teams that I've seen do this, they're able to see what training needs that they have, what is more efficient to get somewhere else, and where they want to spend the resources internally to customize something. And a framework that it's been really nice that I've seen customers use is sort of a good, better, best, so that you understand based on when you need to deliver the training, what the business result you're trying to achieve is, that you can decide, is this something we just need to be with good? And we have a framework for what that content is, whether we go buy it or we develop a video for it. Or when something is best, and I love the examples of blended learning where you're doing, in-person things, that would be a best, but the amount of effort that goes into that, both in the course content, but also in the training involved. So I actually don't think about it as an either or, think about it as what is the situation and what does it call for?
Great stuff. The second question, that this will make you think, it's about the employee engagement topic you mentioned during your speech. So you mentioned increasing employee engagement through training. What's your advice on how often you should offer training to your team members?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is first to make sure that you train your employees how to engage with training. So often I see so many, our own company included, but so many other companies get feedback on their employee surveys saying there aren't training opportunities, or I wish that we had more learning and development opportunities. And companies say, but they're there. They're in the catalog. We have a budget for it. They're right there. We haven't actually trained people to know when to access those resources, how to access those resources, and I think we haven't put enough weight behind it as to put a stake in it to say, if you complete this program, this is part of your pathway to promotion. This is part of a pathway to another role on another team. We tend to not really think about that content that we're putting out there, and we hear that there's a need for content. We put content out there, but there's not enough conversation internally to say, what does it mean to take this training? What do you actually achieve? So I think that when you get those comments about engagement and you're trying to get people to engage in training, you can't just think about training as enrollments. You have to think about where are people engaged in learning, and is that leading to people getting promoted? Is that leading to people staying in the company? So when you have engagement is a bigger piece of the puzzle. So when you have engaged employees, and part of that is training. But where I worry people fall is just looking at people are logging into their training, done, they're engaged, and that's usually not the case.
Well said. I think learning paths are key. So it's a case of, as Marianne mentioned, identify their objectives, their goals, seek to support them, but also show what the education path towards them is. So many thanks, Frances.
Yeah, I would just say, and being willing to hold up to that. So if you say that this training is part of a promotion and that you have managers bought into that, and that you aren't just sort of putting lip service to this training is important, like you really should stand behind it.
Well said. Keep your promises. Many thanks, Frances. David, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you, Frances. So we're just at the end now. So firstly, I want to thank Marianne from IB Connect, also Frances from LearnUpon. It's been fantastic. Thanks very much for your time and dedication. I know you're busy, so appreciate that. And then on the Scorebuddy side, Ken, Rebecca, and David Bosang as well. We couldn't do it without you. So again, yeah, thanks to everyone for attending. It's been great. Reminders that the recording will be available shortly. And also I'll send out a invite for the other two webinars that I mentioned earlier on. And as you leave today, there will be a short survey. So if you wouldn't mind spending a couple of minutes filling that in, that's important that we improve the quality, we focus on the right content, and we'd appreciate your feedback on that. So that's great. So hope everyone has a great rest of day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.